Hello, and welcome to Documentary for Sleep. The quiet place where the lights are kept low, the world is asked to soften, and the mind is finally allowed to wander without needing to arrive anywhere at all. It is late, or perhaps it only feels late, and that is enough. You do not have to be awake for this. You do not have to remember any of it. All you have to do tonight is rest, and let the sound of these words carry you somewhere far away. And far away is exactly where we are going. Not to a mountain, not to an ocean, not to any place you could point to on a map. Tonight we are lifting our eyes past the roof above you, past the clouds, past the thin blue skin of air that keeps every living thing on this planet alive, and out into the dark that has no floor and no ceiling, and no edge that anyone has ever found. We are going to the planets, not the ones we have walked upon, for there is only one of those, but the others. The distant ones, the ones we have glimpsed but never held, the ones that circle other suns, that drift alone through the cold, that hang so far beyond us that no human hand will ever touch them, no matter how long our species endures. These are the worlds we may never reach, and there are more of them than there are grains of sand on every shore on Earth. Before we drift out among them, I would love to know, quietly, where you are tonight. Are you somewhere warm, wrapped up against the dark? Somewhere the rain is falling, or the wind is moving through the trees? Wherever you are, whatever the hour, you are sitting on the surface of a single small planet turning slowly in the black, and that in itself is a kind of miracle. If this gentle sort of wondering is the kind of thing that helps you rest, it would mean a great deal if you would leave a like on this video or subscribe to Documentary for Sleep. It is a small thing, but it helps this quiet corner of the night reach other people who are lying awake, too, looking for somewhere calm to put their thoughts. That is all. There will be nothing else to ask of you tonight. So settle in now. Let your shoulders drop. Let the day you have had begin to loosen its grip, thought by thought, until it lets go entirely. Make yourself comfortable, slow your breathing, and come with me out past the last of the light. Because the story we are telling tonight is written across distances so vast that the words we use to measure them begin to lose their meaning. And that is where we will begin. Not with the planets themselves, but with the emptiness between them, and with the strange, quiet truth that space is not mostly stars. Space is mostly the dark that keeps them apart. To understand why some worlds may forever lie beyond our reach, you first have to feel the size of the distance. And feeling it is harder than it sounds, because our minds were never built for this. We were built to judge the distance across a valley, the throw of a stone, the walk to the far side of a field. Numbers larger than that become abstractions, and abstractions do not frighten us or move us the way a real span of ground does. So let us try, gently, to make the distance real. Imagine you could travel at the speed of light. Nothing in the universe can go faster. Light is the fastest messenger there is, moving at very nearly 300,000 kilometers every second. In the time it takes you to blink, a beam of light could circle the Earth 7 times over. At that impossible speed, you could cross from one side of our planet to the other and back again before you had finished the thought. And yet even light, the swiftest thing that exists, takes time to travel through space, because space is so unimaginably wide. From the sun, light takes about 8 minutes to reach us. That means the sunlight warming a windowsill in the afternoon left the surface of the sun 8 minutes before it arrived. If the sun were to vanish in an instant, we would carry on in ordinary daylight for 8 more minutes, never knowing anything had changed, until the light simply ran out. That is how far away our own star is, the nearest star to us by an enormous margin. 8 minutes at the speed of light. Already, this is a distance no human being will ever cross unaided. And the sun is our neighbor. The sun is close. Now push further out, past the orbit of the Earth, past the red deserts of Mars, past the great banded storms of Jupiter and the rings of Saturn, out to the cold and lonely edges of our own solar system, where the sun is no longer a warm disk, but only the brightest star among many. Light that leaves the sun takes hours to reach these outer places. And still, we have not left home. All of this, every planet you have ever heard named, every world our probes have ever visited, lies within a single small system around a single ordinary star. Beyond it, there is nothing but the dark, for a very, very long way. How long? If you were to leave our solar system entirely and travel toward the nearest other star, you would have to cross more than 4 light years of empty space. 4 years traveling at the speed of light through a void so complete that in all that distance you would pass almost nothing at all. No worlds, no warmth, no signposts, just the slow, silent fall through the dark, with the stars ahead unmoving for lifetime after lifetime. That nearest star is called Proxima Centauri, a small, dim red ember of a sun, and it is our closest stellar neighbor, 4¼ light years away, and it circles with at least one planet of its own. Try for a moment to make a single light year real. A light year is not a measure of time, though it sounds like one. It is a measure of distance, the distance that light, moving at 300,000 kilometers every second, travels in the course of a whole year. Think of how far light goes in 1 second, a distance that would carry it 7 times around the Earth. Now let it keep going, without pause, for a full minute, an hour, a day, without ever slowing. Let it travel on through every second of an entire year, never resting, never stopping, always at that same unimaginable speed. The distance it covers in that year is a single light year, and it is so vast that the numbers we would need to write it out in kilometers are all but meaningless to us, trailing zeros past the point where the mind can follow. And to the nearest star, there are more than 4 of those. 4 light years. 4 whole years of that ceaseless, headlong flight of light, just to cross the empty space to our very nearest neighbor, in a galaxy that stretches 100,000 light years from end to end. When you feel that, even for a moment, the distances stop being numbers and become something closer to awe. And Proxima is not quite alone out there. It belongs to a small family of 3 stars, the very closest of all star systems to our own, bound loosely together in the dark. 2 of them are bright, sun-like stars, circling one another closely, and the third is little Proxima, the faint red ember, drifting at the outer edge of the group, and, as it happens, the nearest of the 3 to us, and so the nearest star of all. If you could somehow stand on Proxima's planet and look up, you would see, along with your own dim red sun, 2 other brilliant stars shining in the sky, far brighter than anything in our own night. 2 distant suns that keep each other company across the dark, casting their pale light down upon a world that is not ours and never will be. That is the closest other place there is. That is the very doorstep of the whole vast galaxy, and it is 4 light years away, 70,000 years by our fastest machines, forever beyond the reach of any living hand. We will come back to that planet later, because it is one of the great aching temptations of the sky. A world that may be a little like our own, close enough to see and understand, and yet so far that reaching it may be beyond us forever. But first, hold on to this number, 4 light years. Because to a beam of light, 4 years is a long journey, To us, it is unthinkable. Consider the fastest thing human hands have ever built. Consider our furthest travelers, the probes we have flung out of the solar system across decades of patient effort. The most distant of them has been flying for nearly half a century, moving at many kilometers every second, faster than any bullet, faster than anything you could stand beside and watch. It is now so far away that its faint radio whisper takes almost a full day to reach us. And yet, if that probe were somehow aimed at the nearest star, and if it simply kept going at its current speed, it would take not 4 years, not 400, but somewhere around 70,000 years to arrive. 70,000 years. That is longer than our entire recorded history. That is longer than farming, longer than writing, longer than the oldest city ever built. Whole civilizations would rise and be forgotten before that little craft reached the very nearest star to our own. And Proxima Centauri is the closest. It is the doorstep. Beyond it lie the other stars of our galaxy, hundreds of billions of them, spread across a spiral so wide that light takes 100,000 years merely to cross from one side to the other. And beyond our galaxy lie other galaxies, and beyond them still more, in numbers that the mind simply cannot hold. This is the shape of the barrier we are talking about tonight. It is not a wall. It is not a locked door. It is distance itself, pure and vast and indifferent, the sheer, staggering emptiness of space, spread out between us and everything we long to reach. That emptiness is the first reason so many worlds may remain forever beyond us. Not because they are hidden, not because they are hostile, though many of them are, but simply because they are far, and space is patient, and the human life is short. We are creatures of a single lifetime, trying to touch places that light itself struggles to reach. And once you feel the true size of that gap, you begin to understand why the sky, for all its beauty, is also a kind of quiet heartbreak. So much to see, so little we can ever hold, and yet we keep looking, because looking is the one thing the distance cannot take from us. But distance is only the beginning. Because even the worlds that are close, even the ones within our own solar system, the ones our machines have flown past and photographed and studied for years, are in their own way unreachable too. Not because we cannot get there, but because we could never survive there. And to understand that, we have to turn our attention away from the far and toward the near, to the strange and terrible planets that circle our own sun, the neighbors we have seen but can never stand upon. Begin with the one that shines brightest in our evening sky, the world we have called the morning star and the evening star, the one so lovely from a distance that ancient people named it after the goddess of beauty. Venus from here, through a telescope, it is a smooth, pale, pearl-white sphere, wrapped in soft cloud, gentle and serene. It is almost exactly the size of the Earth, our near twin in mass and breadth, and for a long time people imagined it might be a warm and living place, a jungle world beneath those clouds, damp and green and full of life. It seemed reasonable. It seemed hopeful. It was completely wrong. Beneath those beautiful clouds, Venus is one of the most hostile places in the known universe. The clouds are not water. They are sulfuric acid, thick and choking. The atmosphere is not air you could breathe, but a crushing ocean of carbon dioxide, so heavy that the pressure at the surface is around 90 times greater than the pressure you feel right now. It is the same pressure you would find nearly a kilometer deep in Earth's oceans. It would crush an unprotected body without effort, flatten it, fold it, in a moment. And the heat. The surface of Venus is hot enough to melt lead, around 460 degrees, hotter than the inside of a domestic oven, hotter than any desert on Earth, hotter, in fact, than the planet Mercury, which orbits far closer to the Sun. Venus is hotter than the world nearest the fire because its thick atmosphere traps the heat and will not let it go, a runaway greenhouse that turned a possible paradise into a furnace. We have tried to land there. Decades ago, spacecraft were sent down through those acid clouds to touch the surface and send back what they could. They were built like deep sea vessels, armored against the pressure, insulated against the heat. And they survived, some of them, for a little while. Not hours, minutes, a handful of minutes on the surface before the heat and the pressure silenced them forever. In that brief time, one or two managed to send back images, and they showed a bleak, orange-lit plain of flat, cracked rock beneath a sky the color of a bruise, a landscape lit not by a visible sun, but by a dull, diffuse, sulfurous glow filtering through the endless cloud. And then, nothing. The machines died. They are still there, our silent little emissaries, sitting on the scorched plains of Venus, slowly being unmade by a world that will not tolerate us. So Venus is close. Venus is a neighbor. On a good night, you can see it with your own eyes, a bright, steady silver point in the dusk. And you will never go there. No one will, not because we cannot cross the distance, but because the world itself is a killing ground, and no body of flesh could last a single breath upon it. Move outward past the earth, to the one world that has always seemed, of all the others, the most like a possible second home. Mars, the red planet, small and cold and rust-colored, the world our stories have dreamed of for more than a century, the place we have imagined settling, walking beneath a pink evening sky, building the first human footprints on another world. And of all the planets, Mars is indeed the gentlest, the one we might, one distant day, actually set foot upon. But do not mistake gentlest for kind. Mars would still end an unprotected life in minutes, given the chance. The air on Mars is barely there at all. What atmosphere it has is thin beyond breathing, less than 1/100th the thickness of our own, and it is not air you could use in any case, being almost entirely carbon dioxide. Step out onto the Martian surface without a suit and you would not simply suffocate. The near vacuum would begin to pull the very moisture out of your body, the fluid in your eyes, the water in your blood, drawing it toward boiling in the thin cold. And the cold is bitter. Mars is far enough from the sun that even its warmest summer noon at the equator might rise, briefly, to the temperature of a cool spring day, before plunging at night to 100 degrees below freezing, colder than the coldest place on Earth has ever known. Its thin air holds no warmth. The heat of the day escapes into the black sky the moment the sun goes down, and there is a subtler danger, invisible and constant. Mars has no protective shield the way the Earth does. Our planet is wrapped in a magnetic field, generated deep in its molten heart, that turns aside much of the harmful radiation streaming from the sun and pouring in from deep space. Mars long ago lost most of that protection. Its magnetic field faded, and without it, over billions of years, the solar wind stripped away most of its atmosphere and left its surface exposed to a slow, ceaseless rain of radiation. Anyone living there, even beneath the pink sky, even in the mildest weather, would be bathed in it, day after day, a quiet accumulating harm against which a wall of rock or a roof of soil would be the only defense. To live on Mars, people would have to burrow, to shelter underground, hiding from the very sky above them. And then there is the dust. Fine, iron-rich, rust-red dust, covering the whole planet, so fine it works its way into everything, and every so often rising up in vast storms that can swallow the entire globe, wrapping the whole world in a haze that blots out the sun for weeks at a time. That dust would clog machines, coat every surface, seep into shelters, and in its finest form, it may even be poisonous to breathe. Mars is not the welcoming red frontier of the old stories. It is a frozen, irradiated, dust-choked desert, drier than the driest place on Earth, its ancient rivers long since vanished, its seas long since gone, its surface a vast, silent, rust-colored emptiness under a pale and distant sun. And yet, of all the worlds beyond our own, it may be the only one we could ever truly reach with our own bodies and hope to survive, if only barely, if only inside sealed shelters, if only by carrying every breath of air and drop of water and scrap of warmth with us all the way from home. It is the closest thing to a second Earth within our grasp, and it is a frozen, poisoned desert that would kill an unprotected traveler in moments. That is how narrow the margin is. That is how rare and precious our own living world truly is. Even the friendliest of our neighbors is a place of exile, somewhere we could only ever visit as sealed and fragile guests, never freely, never with the open ease of standing in a field at home and simply breathing in. Move further then, out past Mars, out to where the giant planets begin, and the very idea of standing on a world starts to dissolve entirely. Because the great planets of the outer solar system, Jupiter and Saturn, Uranus and Neptune, have no surface at all. There is no ground on Jupiter. There is nowhere to land. If you tried to descend into it, you would fall, and keep falling down through layer after layer of thickening cloud and gas, the pressure rising, the temperature climbing, the light dimming to nothing. There would be no floor to catch you. The atmosphere would simply grow denser and denser around you until it crushed you, long before you reached anything you could call solid. Jupiter is not a place you could visit. It is a place that would swallow you. And Jupiter is enormous. You could fit more than 1,000 Earths inside it. Its great red spot, the swirling storm that has churned across its face for centuries, is a single hurricane larger than our entire planet. A storm you could drop the Earth into and lose. The winds within it move at hundreds of kilometers an hour. Deep beneath the visible clouds, under pressures we can barely imagine, the hydrogen that makes up most of the planet is squeezed so hard that it stops behaving like a gas and starts behaving like a liquid metal. An ocean of glowing metallic hydrogen, thousands of kilometers deep, wrapping the planet's core. Nothing we could build could survive down there. Nothing we could send would ever come back. Beyond Jupiter, the same story repeats itself in different and beautiful forms. There is Saturn, loveliest of all the planets, wrapped in its shining rings. A world so light for its size that it would float upon water if there were an ocean anywhere vast enough to hold it. But Saturn, too, is a giant of gas and cloud. With no solid ground beneath its storms, no place to stand, no floor to catch a falling traveler. And its rings, so solid and gleaming from a distance, are not solid at all. They are made of countless billions of pieces of ice and rock, some as small as grains of sand, some as large as houses, each one a tiny moon in its own orbit. All of them together spread so thin that the whole magnificent ring system, wide enough to very nearly span the distance from the Earth to the Moon, is in most places only a few meters thick. You could not walk across the rings. You could not land upon them. They are a glittering illusion of solidity, a river of tumbling ice circling a world you could never touch. Further out still lie the ice giants, Uranus and Neptune, cold and blue and remote, so far from the sun that their years last for decades and lifetimes, so distant that from their cloud tops the sun would be little more than a very bright star, giving almost no warmth at all. These are worlds of freezing gas and slush and strange chemistry, where deep inside, under pressures beyond imagining, It is thought that carbon may be squeezed until it falls as diamond, showers of glittering crystal drifting forever down through the dark interior of a world no eye will ever see. Neptune, the furthest of the great planets, is whipped by the fastest winds in the entire solar system, gales screaming across its face at well over 1,000 kilometers an hour, in a cold so deep that nothing we know could endure it for an instant. And inward, in the other direction, closest of all to the sun, there is little Mercury, a scorched and airless ball of rock, so near the fire that its daylit surface bakes at hundreds of degrees, hot enough to melt some metals, while its long night, with no atmosphere at all to hold the warmth, plunges to hundreds of degrees below freezing. A single small world, holding both extremes at once, swinging between furnace and ice with nothing gentle in between, its gray surface cratered and battered by ages of impacts, staring blankly at the sun it can never escape. You could not survive there either. Nowhere in our whole family of worlds, save the one beneath your feet, could you draw a single breath and go on living. And yet, scattered among these great and terrible planets, there are smaller worlds that tug at us with a special kind of longing. Not the planets themselves, but their moons. For some of the moons of the outer giants are worlds in their own right, larger than some planets, and stranger and more wonderful than almost anything else in the sun's whole domain. There is a great moon of Saturn, wrapped in a thick orange haze, the only moon in the solar system with a proper atmosphere of its own. And beneath that smoggy golden shroud there are rivers and lakes and seas, real standing bodies of liquid, dark and slow, lapping at frozen shores. But the liquid is not water. It is far too cold for water there, so cold that water is hard as stone. The lakes are made of liquid methane and ethane, substances we know on Earth only as gases, chilled into strange dark seas beneath a hazy sky. It is a world with weather, with clouds and rain and shorelines and slow-flowing rivers, uncannily like our own and yet utterly alien. A place you could almost imagine walking beside, if only the air would not freeze the life from you in a single breath. And there are moons that hide oceans. Circling Jupiter there is a moon sheathed entirely in ice, smooth and cracked and gleaming, and beneath that frozen shell, kept liquid by the flexing pull of the giant planet's gravity, there lies a hidden ocean, a global sea of salt water buried under many kilometers of ice, holding perhaps more water than all the oceans of the Earth combined. And circling Saturn there is a small bright moon that sprays great plumes of water and ice out into space through cracks near its southern pole. Plumes that carry with them salts and simple building blocks of life, clear evidence of a warm, hidden sea beneath its icy crust. These buried oceans, sealed in darkness beneath their frozen skins, are among the most tantalizing places in all the solar system. Because where there is liquid water and warmth and the slow chemistry of rock meeting sea, there is at least the possibility of life. Somewhere out there, beneath the ice of a distant moon, in a black and silent ocean that has never seen the sun, something may even now be stirring. We do not know. We may not know for a very long time. To reach down through kilometers of ice on a moon hundreds of millions of kilometers away is a task at the very edge of what we can imagine attempting. But the possibility is there, and it haunts us, and it draws our eyes forever outward, toward those small frozen worlds and the dark seas they keep hidden within them. These, then, are the worlds next door. These are the planets we know best, the ones we have studied for generations, the ones whose photographs hang on the walls of classrooms. And every one of them, in its own way, is closed to us. Venus by its heat and its crushing air, the giants by their bottomless depths. Even the small, cold, distant worlds at the solar system's edge are so far from the sun's warmth that they are locked in a frozen darkness we could not endure. We can see them. We can send our machines to fly past them and wave, in a sense, before rushing on into the black. But we cannot go. We cannot stay. Our own family of planets, our own small neighborhood in the vastness, is very nearly as unreachable in any way that matters as the stars themselves. And that is a strange and humbling thing to sit with in the quiet of the night, that we are, in a sense, marooned, bound to one small world by the impossibility of every other. Everything we can see, and almost everything we can imagine, lies behind a barrier we cannot cross, whether that barrier is made of distance or of heat, of pressure or of cold. The universe is astonishingly full of places, and astonishingly empty of anywhere we could ever live. And even this is not the true edge of our home. For beyond the great planets, beyond Neptune's cold blue distance, our solar system does not simply stop. It fades, slowly, outward, into a vast and shadowy frontier that most people never think about at all. A realm so far from the sun and so faintly lit that it is very nearly a part of the interstellar dark already. Out here drift the small frozen worlds, the dwarf planets and their countless icy kin, of which distant Pluto is only the most famous. Pluto is a tiny world, smaller even than our own moon, a ball of ice and rock so far from the sun that a single one of its years lasts nearly 2.5 centuries, and where the sun, though still the brightest thing in the sky, is only a piercingly bright star, casting a light so dim that noon on Pluto is fainter than twilight here on Earth. When at last we sent a spacecraft to fly past it, that craft, one of the fastest we had ever launched, took nearly 10 years to arrive. 10 years crossing the emptiness just to reach the edge of our own planetary neighborhood. And even then, it could not stop. It rushed past in a matter of hours, gathering what it could, and hurtled onward into the dark. Beyond Pluto lies a great belt of these frozen worlds, thousands upon thousands of them, scattered through the cold in a broad ring far wider than all the space enclosed by the planets. And beyond even that, far, far beyond, there is thought to be a vast and ghostly shell surrounding the whole of the solar system, a cloud of icy bodies stretching outward for an almost unimaginable distance, the birthplace of the great comets that occasionally fall in toward the sun and blaze across our skies. This outermost shell is so far away that it begins to be measured not in the familiar distances of the planets, but in a meaningful fraction of the distance to the very nearest star. It is the true and final edge of the sun's realm, the last faint outpost before interstellar space proper, and to cross it, to travel from the sun all the way out through this frozen shell and beyond, even our fastest spacecraft would need tens of thousands of years. Sit with that for a moment, here in the quiet. We speak of reaching other stars, and rightly, it seems impossibly far. But we have not even crossed our own back garden. The furthest edge of our own solar system, the outer boundary of the single star system we call home, is already so distant that our swiftest machines would take longer to reach it than our entire species has existed. Everything, all of human history, every language ever spoken, every life ever lived, has happened in less time than it would take a fast spacecraft to travel even part of the way to the edge of the sun's own dominion. We have not left home. We have barely stepped out of the door. And already the distances defeat us. There is something both humbling and strangely peaceful in this. The great vastness does not begin somewhere far away, in the space between the stars. It begins right here, at the edges of our own small system, in a darkness that already exceeds our reach. We are cradled in a pocket of the possible so small that even its outermost walls lie beyond our grasp. And beyond those walls, the true immensity opens out. Ocean upon ocean of empty space, star upon star, world upon world, on and on without end. But perhaps you might think that is only a problem of engineering. Perhaps with better ships, faster ships, we could at least cross the distance, even if we could never land. Perhaps if we could travel fast enough, the stars themselves would come within our reach. And so it is worth pausing here, in the soft dark, to ask a harder question, not whether we can survive on those worlds, but whether we could ever get to them at all. Because there is a limit to speed itself, woven into the very fabric of the universe, and it is one of the strangest and most beautiful barriers of all. The speed of light is not merely fast, it is the fastest anything can ever go. This is not a matter of not yet having built a good enough engine. It is not a limit we are clever enough to break one day. As far as everything we understand about the universe tells us, it is a fundamental rule, written into the structure of space and time themselves. Nothing that has mass, nothing made of matter, nothing you could sit inside, can ever reach the speed of light, let alone exceed it. And the closer you try to get to that speed, the harder the universe pushes back. There is a curious mathematics to this, and you do not need to follow the numbers to feel the poetry of it. As an object moves faster and faster, approaching the speed of light, it becomes, in a sense, heavier, harder to push. It takes more and more energy to gain even a little more speed. And as you draw very near to that ultimate limit, the energy required climbs toward infinity. To actually reach the speed of light, a spaceship would need infinite energy, and there is not infinite energy anywhere in the universe. And so the door is closed. Not locked by us, not locked by our ignorance, but sealed by the deepest laws of reality. We cannot go as fast as light, and light, as we have seen, takes years, centuries, hundreds of thousands of years to cross the distances between the stars. There is something else, stranger still. If you could travel very close to the speed of light, time itself would begin to change for you. This is not a story or a fancy. It is one of the most tested and confirmed truths in all of science. The faster you move through space, the slower you move through time, compared to those you leave behind. A traveler flying near the speed of light might experience only a few years passing on their ship, while back on Earth, decades, centuries, even millennia slip away. You could fly to a distant star and return, feeling that you had aged only a little, and find that everyone you had ever known was long dead, that the world you left had changed beyond recognition, that whole ages of history had unfolded and ended while you slept among the stars. This means that even if we could build a ship that flew close to the speed of light, and even if a crew could survive the journey, they would be sailing away not only from home, but from their own time. They would return, if they returned at all, to a future world of strangers. To reach the stars, in a sense, is to leave the present behind forever. Picture it gently, the way you might picture a story told at the edge of sleep. Imagine two people who love each other, and one of them leaves on a journey to a nearby star, traveling almost as fast as light, while the other stays behind at home. To the traveler, the voyage feels short. The stars ahead shift and gather toward a single bright point. The years pass, but not many of them. Perhaps, aboard the ship, only a handful of birthdays go by before the star is reached and the long journey home begins. And when at last the traveler returns, stepping back onto the earth, grown only a little older, they find that home is not home anymore. The one who stayed behind has lived a whole long life without them, has grown old, has perhaps passed away long ago. The children of that time are now the elderly. The world has moved through decades or centuries, while the traveler aged only a few years. It is not a punishment, It is not a trick. It is simply the way time itself behaves at such speeds, tested and confirmed and true. To travel to the stars is to fall out of step with everyone you leave behind. To return, if you return at all, as a stranger from the past, arriving into a future that has already forgotten you. And this is another quiet barrier between us and the worlds we long for. Not just that they are far, but that the reaching of them would cost us our place in time, our people, the whole warm web of the lives we know. So the fastest possible speed is still, for the purposes of visiting other stars, agonizingly slow. And we cannot even come close to it. Our real spacecraft move at a tiny fraction of 1% of the speed of light. To them, the nearest star is 70,000 years away. This is the hard truth at the center of the dream. The universe is not merely large. It has a speed limit, and that speed limit is far too slow for the distances involved. We are like people standing on the shore of an ocean that has no far side, holding a boat that can only drift. And yet, human beings are stubborn dreamers, and we have imagined ways around even this. If we cannot go fast, some have said, then perhaps we could go slowly and simply take our time. Perhaps we could build not a fast ship, but a patient one. A ship so large, so complete, so self-sustaining, that it could carry not a crew for a journey, but a whole community for a life. A ship that would become a small traveling world of its own, drifting through the dark for generations, its passengers living and loving and dying aboard it, their children and grandchildren carrying on the voyage, until at last, centuries later, some distant descendant might arrive at another star. This is the dream of the generation ship. And it is one of the most beautiful and one of the most sorrowful ideas we have ever had. Picture such a vessel. It would have to be immense, a hollow world spinning slowly to make a false gravity along its inner walls, so that people could walk and their bodies would not waste away in weightlessness. Inside, there would need to be everything a living population requires, not for a journey, but forever. Fields to grow food, endlessly recycled. Water, used and cleaned and used again. The same water passing through the same bodies for hundreds of years. Air scrubbed and renewed by plants and machines, breath after breath, with no window to open, no fresh wind ever again. It would be a closed world, sealed against the void, and everyone aboard would spend their entire existence within its walls. Now think about what that would mean for the people inside. The first generation would remember the earth. They would remember the sky, real sky, and the sea, and the feeling of standing on solid ground with the whole open world around them. They would have chosen this. They would have said goodbye. But their children would be born aboard the ship, in the dark between the stars, and they would never have seen the earth at all. To them, the earth would be a story, a legend, a blue place in old images that they could never touch. The ship would be their entire universe. Its metal corridors would be their horizon, and they would never have chosen any of it. They would simply have been born into a voyage they could not leave, bound for a destination they would never live to see, keeping the ship alive for descendants they would never meet. Generation after generation, the same. Children raised to maintain the systems, to grow the food, to keep the great vessel functioning, so that people not yet born, centuries in the future, might one day arrive at a world their ancestors had only dreamed of. And even then, there would be no guarantee. The star they were bound for might have no world worth landing on. The world might turn out to be another Venus, another furnace, another crushing giant. After 500 years of sacrifice, the distant descendants might arrive to find nowhere to go. Or the ship might fail. In all those centuries, a single fault, a single failure of the air, the water, the fragile living systems, might end everything. There would be no rescue. There would be no turning back. There would be no one within light years to hear a call for help. This is the cost the distance asks of us. Not merely money, not merely effort, but whole lives, whole generations of lives, given over entirely to a crossing so long that no one who begins it could ever finish it. It is a kind of relay race run across centuries, where every runner dies before passing the baton, and no runner ever sees the finish. And there is a real and painful question buried in it, one that people who study these things argue about seriously. Is it right? Is it right to bind unborn generations to a voyage they never agreed to raise children in a sealed metal world with no sky, all so that some far-off descendant might touch another star? There is no easy answer. There is only the ache of it, the sense that even our most patient and determined dream of reaching the stars is shadowed by sorrow. Others have dreamed of a gentler way around the distance. If the journey must last centuries, they say, then let the travelers sleep through it. Let them be laid down in some deep and dreamless slumber, their bodies cooled, their hearts slowed almost to stillness, their aging paused, so that they might drift unconscious across the centuries and wake at last unchanged, at journey's end, stepping out onto a new world as though only a single night had passed. It is a beautiful thought, and it appears in 1,000 of our stories, the sleepers waking beneath an alien sun. But we do not know how to do it. Not truly. We can chill a body, but bringing it back, unharmed after years of near-death cold, is something we have never managed, and may never manage, for the frost that preserves is also the frost that destroys, forming its tiny cruel crystals in every living cell. And even if we could do it, even if the sleepers could be woken whole after 500 years, the deeper sorrows would remain. They would still wake in a world impossibly far from home, cut off from everyone they had ever known, arriving into a future that had left their own time behind forever. Sleep does not shorten the distance. It only spares the traveler from having to feel every year of it. And so the generation ship remains, for now, a dream, a thought experiment, a thing we can imagine but have not dared, and perhaps could not build. The distance defeats even our patience, and the stars remain where they have always been, bright and cold and utterly beyond us, turning slowly in a dark too wide to cross. But if we cannot go to them, we have found, at least, that we can look. And in the last few decades, our looking has become something extraordinary. We have learned to find planets around other stars, worlds so distant that they are nothing more than the faintest flicker in the light of a far-off sun. And what we have found has changed everything we thought we knew about how full the universe might be. Let us drift now toward those distant worlds, the exoplanets, the countless hidden planets of other suns, and consider the strange, bittersweet gift of knowing they exist while knowing, too, that we will almost certainly never reach them. For most of human history, we did not know whether there were any other planets at all. We knew of the few worlds circling our own sun, the ones we could see moving against the stars. But whether the other stars, those distant points of light scattered across the night, had planets of their own, no one could say. It was a question as old as wonder itself, and for thousands of years it had no answer. The stars were simply too far, their planets too small and too dim, lost entirely in the glare of the suns they circled. Looking for a planet around another star was like trying to see a moth fluttering beside a searchlight from 1,000 miles away. The moth is there, but the light drowns it. And then, within living memory, we found a way. We could not see the planets directly, not at first, but we could see what they did to their stars. A planet, as it orbits, tugs gently on its sun with its own small gravity, making the star wobble ever so slightly, back and forth in a tiny rhythmic dance. And by watching the light of a star with exquisite care, we learned to detect that wobble. We could not see the planet, but we could feel its pull written in the trembling of the starlight. The first such worlds were found in the closing years of the last century, and they were strange, enormous planets, giants larger than Jupiter, orbiting so close to their stars that their years lasted only days. They were nothing like our own worlds. But they were there. They were real. For the first time in history, we truly knew, that other suns had planets too. And then came a second method, even more powerful. If a planet's orbit happens to be lined up just right, so that, from our distant vantage, the planet passes directly in front of its star, then once every orbit, the planet blocks a tiny fraction of the star's light. The star dims, just slightly, just for a few hours, and then brightens again as the planet moves on. This faint, regular flicker, a dip in the light repeating like a heartbeat, is the shadow of a world. And by watching hundreds of thousands of stars at once, patiently, for years, we learned to catch these flickers by the thousand. Space telescopes were built for exactly this purpose, staring unblinking at vast fields of stars, waiting for the tiny dimming that betrays an unseen planet crossing its sun. What we found astonished even the people who had hoped for it. Planets were everywhere. Nearly every star, it turned out, has planets of some kind. Our galaxy alone, with its hundreds of billions of stars, must contain hundreds of billions of planets, perhaps far more. Small rocky worlds and vast gas giants, worlds of ice and worlds of fire, worlds orbiting two suns at once, so that their skies hold a double sunrise and a double sunset, and every object casts two shadows, worlds far larger than the Earth and worlds smaller than it, some circling their stars in a matter of hours, roasting in the heat, others drifting far out in the cold, taking centuries to complete a single year. The universe, which we had once imagined might be nearly empty of worlds, turned out to be crowded with them. An endless catalog of planets stretching out in every direction, more numerous than we could ever hope to count. And this was only our own galaxy. Try, for a moment, to let the true scale of it settle over you, softly, without straining. Our galaxy holds hundreds of billions of stars, and around them, hundreds of billions of worlds. And our galaxy is only one galaxy among an almost unimaginable multitude. When we turn our finest telescopes toward the smallest, darkest, emptiest seeming patch of the night sky, a scrap of black no larger than a grain of sand held at arm's length, and we stare at it long enough, patiently gathering the faintest light, that tiny dark patch fills with galaxies, thousands of them. Not stars, galaxies, each one a whirling city of hundreds of billions of suns, in a single pinprick of what looked like empty sky. Multiply that across the whole dome of the heavens, in every direction, and the number of galaxies climbs into the hundreds of billions, perhaps into the trillions. And every one of those galaxies holds its own hundreds of billions of stars, and its own uncounted worlds. The number of planets in the universe is so large that it slips entirely out of the reach of the human mind. There are more worlds out there than there are grains of sand on every beach and in every desert on the whole of the earth. Every one of them is a real place, with real ground, or real cloud, or real sea. Every one of them has its own sunrises, or its own eternal dark. Every one of them is turning, right now, somewhere out in the immensity, whether or not any eye will ever see it. And of all those countless, countless worlds, we can reach precisely one, the one you are resting upon tonight. Among all these distant worlds, a few in particular have caught our attention and held it, because they lie in what we call the habitable zone. Among all these distant worlds, a few in particular have caught our attention and held it, because they lie in what we call the habitable zone. This is the band of space around a star, not too close and not too far, where the warmth is gentle enough that liquid water might exist on a world's surface, not frozen solid, not boiled away, liquid as it is on Earth, in oceans and rivers and rain. And where there is liquid water, there is at least the possibility of life. So when we find a world roughly the size of the Earth, made of rock rather than gas, orbiting quietly in the habitable zone of its star, we cannot help but wonder, could it be another Earth? Could there be seas there, and clouds, and the slow green stirring of life? Could someone or something be standing on that distant shore right now, looking up at their own night sky, perhaps wondering the very same thing about us? We have found such worlds. Around that nearest star, Proxima Centauri, the dim red ember just over 4 light years away, there circles a planet roughly the size of the Earth, in the zone where water might exist. We call it, plainly, Proxima b. It is the closest world beyond our own solar system that might, just might, be something like home. And around another modest star, some 40 light years off, there is a whole family of Earth-sized worlds, 7 of them, packed close together, several of them in the habitable band, a miniature system of rocky planets that might hold water, might hold air, might hold something we would recognize as the conditions for life. Imagine standing on one of those 7 worlds. Because they orbit so close together, circling their small red sun in tight and tidy paths, the others would not appear as mere points of light in the sky, the way our neighboring planets do to us. They would loom, large and round and clear, disks you could see plainly with your own eyes, sister worlds hanging overhead, some showing their bright daylit faces, some half in shadow, some drifting slowly across the face of the dim red sun. It would be a sky unlike anything we have ever known, a sky crowded with neighboring worlds close enough to see as places, each one turning, each one perhaps holding its own seas and its own weather and its own quiet possibility of life. To stand beneath such a sky would be one of the great wonders of all existence. And no one from Earth ever will. Those 7 worlds hang 40 light years away, 10 times further than the already impossible distance to the nearest star, so far that even a beam of light needs 40 years to carry us their faint glow. We have found them, we have counted them, and weighed them, and begun to study their skies. We will never stand beneath them. When these discoveries were announced, people all over the Earth felt a quiet thrill, the sense that we were no longer alone in imagining other worlds, that the other worlds were truly, verifiably there. And here is where the ache returns. Because we know these planets exist. We know roughly how large they are, how far they orbit from their suns, how long their years last. We are beginning to be able to study the very air around them, to catch the light of their stars as it filters through their atmospheres and read, in that light, the chemistry of their skies. We can learn whether they have clouds, whether they have water vapor, whether they hold the gases that on Earth are woven through with life. We are, in a real sense, coming to know these worlds. And yet we will almost certainly never go to any of them. Proxima b, The very nearest is 4 light-years away, 70,000 years by our fastest machines. The 7 worlds of that other star are 10 times further still. We can know them, we can name them, we can dream of them, but we cannot reach them, and in all likelihood, we never will. There is a particular kind of longing in this that is unlike anything our ancestors ever felt. When earlier explorers looked out across an ocean, they could not see the far shore, but they could believe that if they only sailed long enough and bravely enough, they might one day arrive. The distance was hard, but it was not infinite. The far shore was real, and it could, in principle, be reached. But we look out at these distant worlds and we know, with cold certainty, that no sail, no ship, no engine we could ever build would carry us across in any span of time that means anything to a human life. The far shore is real. We can even, in a way, see it. But we are held back not by the limits of our courage, but by the limits of the universe itself. We are the first people in history to know for certain that there are countless other worlds, and to know, at the same time, that they are almost all forever beyond us. And still, we keep finding them. Night after night, the count climbs. Thousands of confirmed worlds now, with thousands more waiting to be confirmed. And beyond them, the certainty of billions upon billions we will never individually see. Each one is a place. Each one has landscapes we will never walk, skies we will never stand beneath, weather we will never feel. Each one is turning slowly around its star right now, at this very moment, real and solid and utterly indifferent to whether we ever know its name. It is a strange inheritance to be given a universe so full and to be able to touch so little of it. But there is beauty in it too, a beauty we will come back to before the night is done. For now, let us drift a little further out, because the distance to these worlds, hard as it is not the cruelest barrier of all. There is something stranger happening in the universe, something that is quietly, endlessly, carrying the most distant worlds away from us forever. And to understand it, we have to think not just about space, but about the way space itself is stretching. The universe is expanding. This is one of the great discoveries of the last century, and it is worth sitting with, because it is not quite what it sounds like. When we say the universe is expanding, we do not mean that the galaxies are simply flying apart through space, like debris scattering from an explosion. We mean something far stranger. We mean that space itself, the very fabric of distance, is growing. New space is appearing between the galaxies, all the time, everywhere at once. It is not that the galaxies are moving through space, away from each other. It is that the space between them is swelling, carrying them apart the way 2 dots on the surface of a balloon are carried apart as the balloon inflates, though neither dot ever moves across the rubber. Imagine that balloon. Imagine dots painted on its skin. As you blow it up, every dot moves away from every other dot, and the further apart 2 dots are, the faster they seem to separate, because there is more stretching rubber between them. This is exactly how the universe behaves. Every distant galaxy is moving away from us, and the further away a galaxy is, the faster it recedes. Nearby galaxies drift away slowly. Distant galaxies rush away quickly. And the most distant galaxies of all are receding so fast that here we arrive at one of the most astonishing facts in all of science. There are galaxies so far away that the space between us and them is expanding faster than the speed of light. Now you will remember that nothing can travel through space faster than light. That rule holds. But this is not something traveling through space. This is space itself stretching, and space is under no such speed limit. The distant galaxies are not flying away faster than light. They are barely moving through space at all. It is the space between us that is growing so quickly, across such an enormous gulf, that the total distance is increasing faster than light can cross it. And this has a consequence that is almost too sad to say plainly. It means that the light from those galaxies, the light they are shining out toward us right now, will never reach us. It is set out across the void, traveling at the fastest speed there is, and yet the void between us is growing faster than the light can cross it. That light will fall behind forever. Those galaxies have already slipped beyond our reach, not just physically, but visibly. We will never see them as they are now. We will never see them again at all. Once their old light fades, they are gone, and they are still there, and both of those things are true at once. Astronomers have a name for the boundary this creates. They call it the cosmic event horizon. It is a kind of edge, not to the universe, but to the part of the universe we could ever hope to reach or influence or even see the future of. Anything beyond that horizon is lost to us permanently. And the horizon is not far away in the grand scheme of the cosmos. The universe stretches on for a very long way beyond it, full of galaxies, full of stars, full of worlds. But everything past that line is receding faster than light, and so everything past that line is forever unreachable, not merely hard to reach, not merely a matter of time or engineering or patience. Unreachable in principle, unreachable no matter what we build, no matter how long we wait, no matter what our descendants become. The universe has drawn a circle around us, and outside that circle lie countless worlds we can never touch, and can, in the deepest sense, never even know. And here is the part that turns quiet wonder into something closer to grief. The expansion of the universe is not slowing down. For a long time, we assumed it must be. Gravity, after all, pulls things together, and we imagined it would gently slow the expansion over the ages, like a ball thrown into the air rising more and more slowly. But when we measured carefully, we found the opposite. The expansion is speeding up. Something is pushing the universe apart faster and faster. A mysterious presence woven through all of empty space, which we have named dark energy, not because we understand it, but precisely because we do not. We do not know what it is. We only know its effect. It is stretching the cosmos wider and wider, ever more quickly, and pulling the distant galaxies away from us at an accelerating pace. This means the horizon is closing in. As the expansion accelerates, more and more of the universe is being carried across that line, out beyond the edge of what we can ever reach. Galaxies that are today still just within our grasp, still shining light that can still cross to us, are slowly being swept outward, one by one, over the vast, slow ages, into the unreachable dark. The universe available to us is shrinking, not in size, but in reach. Every day, in a sense, a few more distant worlds slip beyond the horizon and are lost to us forever. And there is nothing anyone could ever do to stop it. It is the deepest tide there is, the outward flow of space itself, and it carries everything away. Think, for a moment, about what this means across the unimaginable future. In the far, far distant ages to come, so far ahead that our whole recorded history is less than the blink of an eye by comparison. The accelerating expansion will have carried nearly all the other galaxies beyond the horizon. Any beings living then, on any world that still holds life, will look out into the night and see almost nothing. Their own galaxy, perhaps, its stars still near enough to shine, but beyond it, only darkness. The billions of other galaxies, all still there, all still burning, will have receded so far and so fast that their light can no longer cross the widening void. Those far future watchers will have no way of knowing that the wider universe ever existed. They will look up and believe their single galaxy is all there is, a small island of light adrift in an empty and eternal dark. The truth, that the cosmos was once full of galaxies beyond counting will have become unknowable, erased not by forgetting, but by the very structure of space. And it is not only the distant galaxies that will fade from view. The stars themselves do not burn forever. Every star, our own sun included, is slowly spending a finite store of fuel, and one day that fuel runs out. Our sun has shone for some 4.5 billion years, and it has roughly that long again before the end. But the end will come. In the far future, the sun will swell, growing vast and red, swallowing the innermost worlds, scorching the earth to a barren cinder, boiling away its oceans, ending forever the one living world we have ever known. Whatever becomes of us by then, if anything of us remains at all, will have long since had to leave, or will simply be gone. And our sun is only one star among the countless billions, all of them burning through their fuel, all of them destined, sooner or later, to fade across spans of time so vast that they make even the present age of the universe seem brief. The stars will go out, one by one, generation after generation of them, until at last the great galaxies themselves grow dim, their fires spent, their light guttering toward nothing. New stars will cease to be born. The old ones will cool and die, and the cosmos will drift, over ages beyond all counting, toward a cold and silent dark, a long, slow twilight in which the last embers fade, and nothing new is ever kindled again. This is the deep future that all our understanding points toward, an immensity of time so great that everything we know, every world, every star, every blazing galaxy, is only a brief, bright flaring in its opening moments. We live, then, not only in a small place, but in a brief and luminous season of the cosmos, an early morning of light and warmth and possibility, long before the long evening comes. The worlds are here now. The stars are burning now. The light still crosses the dark now. None of it is permanent. All of it is passing, slowly, grandly, on scales of time we can barely name. And there is something in that which makes this very moment, this quiet night, with its warmth and its stillness and its still shining stars, feel almost unbearably precious. We are here in the brightness, while the brightness lasts. That, too, is a kind of gift the unreachable worlds give us, simply by being there, simply by burning, for now. We are, in this sense, living in a privileged moment, a window of time when the universe is still young enough that we can see it in its fullness, still open enough that its distant light can reach us, still generous enough to reveal how vast and crowded it truly is. That window is slowly closing, and most of what it reveals to us we can only ever look upon, never touch. The worlds beyond the horizon are the most unreachable of all the unreachable worlds. They are not far in the way the stars are far. They are gone in a way that has no cure, sealed away by the expansion of everything, drifting outward forever into a distance that grows and grows and will never stop growing. We can send our longing after them. We cannot send anything else. And even our longing, in the end, will fall behind the receding light. It is a heavy thought to hold in the dark. So let us hold it gently, and let it settle, and let it become, as such thoughts sometimes do in the small hours, not a weight, but a kind of strange comfort. Because if so much is beyond us, then the ordinary things close at hand, the roof above you, the warmth around you, the quiet of this very moment, become precious beyond measure. We are held in a small circle of reachable things, and everything within that circle is a gift. But before we come to rest there is another strangeness to consider, one that turns the whole question inside out. For when we look out at the distant worlds, we are not seeing them as they are, We are seeing them as they were, and some of them, by now, may not be there at all. This is the strange gift and burden of light. Light is fast, faster than anything, but it is not instant. It takes time to cross space, and the further away something is, the longer its light has been traveling to reach us. Which means that every time you look at a distant thing, you are looking into the past. When you look at the moon, you see it as it was a little over a second ago. When you look at the sun, low and gold at the end of the day, you see it as it was 8 minutes ago. And when you look at the stars, you are looking much, much further back. The light from a star 100 light years away has been traveling for 100 years. You are seeing that star not as it is tonight, but as it was a century ago. Its light setting out on its long journey while your great-grandparents were young, arriving at your eye only now. For the nearest stars, this is a difference of years or decades. But for the distant reaches of the universe, it is a difference of unthinkable ages. When we look at faraway galaxies, we are seeing light that set out millions, even billions of years ago, long before there was any life on Earth, long before the Earth itself existed. We are looking, quite literally, into deep time. The distant universe we see is not a snapshot of how things are. It is a vast, layered archive of how things were, each object showing us a different moment in the past, the near ones recent, the far ones ancient, all of it arriving together in the same night sky, a single view stitched together from a billion different yesterdays. And so when we find a distant world, an exoplanet circling a faraway star, we are not truly seeing it as it is. We are seeing the light that left it long ago. If that star lies 1,000 light years away, then the world we detect is the world as it was 1,000 years past. And a great deal can happen to a world in 1,000 years, or 100,000, or 1,000,000. The planet we find in the light might, by now, have changed beyond recognition. Its star might have swollen and scorched it. Its atmosphere might have been stripped away, or thickened into a shroud. Life might have arisen there, in all the ages since that light departed, or life that once flourished might already have vanished. We would have no way of knowing. We would see only the old light, the ghost of a world, a portrait of a moment already long gone. There are stars in our sky right now, points of light you could pick out with your own eyes, that have already died. Enormous, brilliant stars burn through their fuel quickly and end their lives in tremendous explosions. If such a star lies far enough away, its light continues to arrive at Earth for centuries or millennia after the star itself has been destroyed. So, somewhere in the night, there are stars still shining down on us that are no longer there at all. Their light is a message from a sender who is already gone. We see the glow of a fire that has long since gone out. And any worlds that circled those stars, any planets that once turned in their light, are long since ended too. And yet we may still be seeing them, still be studying their old light, still be dreaming of reaching places that no longer exist. This gives the search for distant worlds a peculiar, dreamlike quality. We are cataloging not the universe that is, but the universe that was. We are explorers of a landscape made entirely of memory, of arriving light, of moments preserved across the gulf of space and only now unfolding before us. The further we look, the deeper into the past we peer, until at the very limit of our sight, we see the young universe itself, the first stars kindling in the ancient dark, light that has crossed nearly the whole age of the cosmos to reach us. Those first worlds, if there were worlds among those first stars, are as unreachable in time as anything is unreachable in space. They are gone. They have been gone for almost as long as there has been a universe. And still, faintly, their light comes to us, whispering across the ages, telling us they were once there. There is a tenderness in this, if you let yourself feel it. The universe does not entirely let go of anything. The light of vanished stars still travels. The image of ended worlds still arrives. Nothing that has ever shone is truly, completely lost, so long as its light is still crossing the dark toward someone who might look up and see it. And perhaps that is a gentle thing to carry into sleep. That even endings leave a trace. That even what is gone still sends its light out into the night, patient and unhurried, reaching for eyes that have not yet opened. On shores that have not yet formed, ages and ages from now, we cannot reach those worlds, but their light reaches us. And in the quiet exchange of that arriving glow, there is a kind of contact, faint and one-sided and beautiful, across a distance that nothing else could ever cross. But let us come back, now, a little closer, because we have spoken of worlds too far to reach, and worlds too far in time, and worlds carried away by the expansion of everything. Yet there are also worlds we could, in principle, come near, and still never set foot upon, because they themselves are so strange, so violent, so utterly hostile to anything soft and living that they would destroy us the moment we arrived. The universe, it turns out, is not only vast, it is also fierce, and some of the planets we have found are stranger and more terrible than anything the old dreamers ever imagined. Let us drift among a few of them now, gently, from a safe distance, and marvel at how wild the worlds can be. Consider first the planets that orbit far too close to their stars. We have found many of these, great scorched worlds circling their suns in a matter of days or even hours, their surfaces turned toward a fire that never sets. On such a world, the star would fill half the sky, a vast burning wall of light, so close that the heat would be beyond anything we have words for. Some of these planets orbit so near that their surfaces are oceans of molten rock, glowing seas of lava stretching from horizon to horizon, never cooling, never still. There would be no land to stand on, no water, no air you could breathe, only the endless roiling of melted stone beneath a sky on fire. And because such a world is so close to its star, it is often locked in place, always showing the same face to the fire, so that one side is a permanent, blazing, molten day, and the other side, turned forever away, is a frozen, sunless night. On the day side, rock boils. On the night side, it may be cold enough to freeze the very substances that on the day side rise as vapor. A single world holding both a furnace and an ice house, joined along a narrow twilit border where the two extremes meet. On some of these worlds, the weather is beyond nightmare. There is a distant planet where the temperature is so high that the iron in its rocks does not merely melt, but evaporates, rising into the atmosphere as a vapor of metal. And on the cooler night side, that iron vapor condenses and falls. It rains iron there, droplets of molten metal falling from a burning sky. A storm of liquid iron sweeping across a world where nothing could ever live. Elsewhere, on other scorched giants, the winds blow at thousands of kilometers an hour, faster than the speed of sound, and the atmosphere is laced with particles of silicate, the stuff of glass. On such a world, it is thought, the winds may whip up storms of glass, sideways rain of tiny glittering shards driven at unimaginable speed, a beautiful and lethal weather that would flay anything caught within it. These are not imagined places from a story. These are real worlds, detected in the light of distant stars, as real as the ground beneath you, and as deadly as anything the universe contains. Then there are the worlds that are locked in place, always turning the same face toward their star, the way our own moon always shows the same face to the earth. Many of the small red stars that fill the galaxy hold their close orbiting planets in exactly this grip, so that on such a world there is no day and no night as we know them, no dawn, no dusk, no turning of the sky. Instead, one whole hemisphere lies forever in the light, baking beneath a sun that never moves, never rises, never sets, but hangs fixed at the same point in the sky for all eternity. And the other hemisphere lies forever in the dark, a permanent, frozen, starlit night that has never once felt the warmth of its own sun. Between these two eternal extremes, the blazing day and the frozen night, there runs a narrow band of perpetual twilight, a ring of everlasting evening circling the whole world, where the sun sits always low upon the horizon, neither rising nor falling. Some have wondered whether, on just such a twilight ring, in that thin band between fire and ice, conditions might be gentle enough for water to pool and life to gather, a world where the only livable place is a single circle of endless dusk, and everywhere else is either furnace or frost. Even our hopes, out here, must squeeze themselves into the narrowest of margins, and there are worlds so large and so heavy that their own gravity would pin us helpless to the ground. We have found many great rocky planets, larger than the Earth, worlds we call super-Earths, and on the largest of them, the pull of gravity would be so strong that a person standing there would feel several times their own weight bearing down upon them, every limb heavy, every step an effort, the whole body laboring simply to stand and to breathe. To fall on such a world could be to break. To lift anything would be a struggle, and to leave again, to climb back up out of that deep gravity well and into space, might take so much energy that a traveler who landed there could find themselves trapped, unable ever to rise off the surface again, held down forever by the sheer weight of the world beneath them. There are stranger worlds still. There are planets where the pressures and temperatures deep inside may turn carbon into vast quantities of crystal, so that beneath the surface there might lie layers of something like diamond, a world of buried jewels no one will ever hold. There are ocean worlds, entirely covered in water, with seas hundreds of kilometers deep and no land at all. The water at the bottom crushed by its own weight into strange, exotic forms of ice that stay solid even while hot. There are puffy, bloated worlds, larger than Jupiter, but so light and airy that they would float on water, if there were an ocean big enough to hold them. There are worlds that circle the dead. When a star like our own finally exhausts its fuel, it does not always simply vanish. Often it collapses down into a small, dense, glowing cinder, a stellar ember no larger than the Earth, but far heavier, cooling slowly over ages beyond counting. And around some of these dead and dying suns, planets still orbit, circling a fading light that grows dimmer century by century, worlds condemned to a long, cold twilight beneath a star that is quietly going out. Stranger still, there are planets that circle the very corpses of the most violent stars, the ultra-dense remnants left behind when a giant star tears itself apart, spinning bodies so tightly compressed that a single spoonful of their matter would weigh as much as a mountain, sweeping the space around them with lethal beams of radiation as they turn. And yet even there, even circling these deadly spinning ghosts of ruined suns, planets have been found, turning silently in a place where nothing could ever live, bathed in radiation, lit by no gentle sun. They are the loneliest and most desolate worlds we have ever detected. They are graves with planets still orbiting them, what is left when a sun has died, and still the worlds go round and round, circling the darkness where the light used to be. The variety is beyond anything we once imagined. Every kind of world that could exist, it seems, does exist, somewhere out in the vastness. and almost every one of them would kill us without a thought. And then, most haunting of all, there are the worlds that have no star at all. We call them rogue planets, and they may be among the most numerous worlds of all, though they are nearly impossible to see. These are planets that drift alone through the dark between the stars, unbound to any sun. Perhaps they were born around a star and then flung out, cast away by the gravity of a passing giant, sent tumbling into the void. Perhaps some formed alone, in the cold, never having had a star to call their own. Whatever their origin, they wander now through the emptiness, in perpetual, absolute night. There is no sunrise on a rogue planet. There is no day. There is no warmth from any sky. There is only the endless dark and the slow drift through space for billions of years alone. Imagine standing on such a world. If you could. Above you, no sun. No moon lit by any sun. Only the distant stars, scattered thin across a black so complete that the very idea of daylight would be a legend, a thing that happened, if it happened at all, on other worlds you could never see. The surface would be frozen far below anything Earth has ever known. The atmosphere, if any remained, fallen as snow and ice upon the ground. And yet, even here, even in this deepest exile from all warmth, it is possible that something stirs. For a large enough rogue planet might hold, deep within itself, the leftover heat of its formation, and beneath a thick crust of ice, that inner warmth might keep a hidden ocean liquid. An ocean sealed beneath ice, in the dark, with no sun above and no shore in sight, warmed only from below by the slow, patient heat of the planet's own heart. If life could ever take hold there, in that black and buried sea, it would be a life that never knew the sun existed. A life for which the entire concept of light from the sky would be meaningless. Wandering forever through the dark, carrying its hidden ocean with it, a lonely ark of warmth adrift in the endless cold. These rogue worlds may outnumber the stars themselves. There may be billions of them, trillions, drifting unseen through our galaxy, dark and silent, each one a place, each one a world, each one utterly beyond our knowing. We cannot see them, for they shine no light of their own and reflect none from any star. We can only catch the rarest glimpse of them by chance, when one happens to pass in front of a distant star and briefly bends its light. And so they remain the great hidden population of the cosmos, the countless dark wanderers, the worlds without suns, drifting through the space between everything, forever unreachable, forever unknown, forever alone. To dwell on all this, the furnaces and the ice worlds, the iron rain and the glass storms, the buried diamonds and the sunless wanderers, is to understand something we do not often let ourselves feel. That the universe was not made for us. It is not gentle. It is not welcoming. It is not, for the most part, a place where anything soft could survive at all. Our own world, our single blue and living earth, is a rare and precious exception, a warm and temperate island in an ocean of extremes, a place so perfectly balanced for life that we take its miracle almost entirely for granted. Out there among the other worlds, there is beauty beyond measure, and there is horror beyond measure, and there is almost nowhere, anywhere, that we could ever call home. The planets we may never reach are not merely far. Most of them are places that would end us in an instant. And knowing that, the ground beneath you, the ordinary air you are breathing right now, becomes something close to sacred. And yet we are not entirely absent from those far places. For where we ourselves cannot go, we have learned to send something in our stead. We cannot cross the distances with our bodies. We cannot survive the hostile worlds with our flesh. But we can build machines, patient and enduring, and send them out ahead of us, into the dark, to be our eyes and our hands where we can never follow. And some of those machines have traveled further than any human ever will, carrying with them a small, brave message from the world that made them. Let us follow them now, our silent envoys, out to the very edge of the reachable and beyond. We began sending machines into space within living memory, first only just above the air, then to the moon, then further, out among the planets of our own solar system. These robotic explorers have done what no human could. They have flown through the crushing radiation around Jupiter and lived to send back images of its storms. They have parachuted down through the orange murk of distant moons and photographed rivers and lakes of liquid methane under a smoggy sky. They have landed on the red deserts of Mars and rolled slowly across them for years, drilling into ancient rock, searching for the faded fingerprints of water that flowed there long ago. They have flown past the outer giants and their rings and their strange frozen moons, gathering in a few brief hours the discoveries of a lifetime, then rushing onward into the dark. Everywhere our bodies cannot go, our machines have gone in our place, uncomplaining, tireless, carrying our curiosity out into the cold. And each of them, in the end, falls silent. That is the fate of every machine we send out into the dark. Its power fades, or its instruments fail, or it simply travels beyond the reach of our voices, and one day the last faint signal arrives, and then no more. Somewhere on the scorched plains of Venus, our little landers sit dead and still, slowly being unmade by the heat. Somewhere on the red deserts of Mars, rovers that trundled faithfully for years have gone quiet at last, frozen in the dust where they finally stopped, their long work done. Somewhere out among the outer giants, a great probe that had given us decades of wonder was sent, at the very end of its mission, plunging deliberately down into the crushing clouds of the planet it had come to study, burning away as a final act so that it would never fall by accident onto one of the fragile, possibly living moons it had taught us to cherish. These machines have no feelings. They do not know that they are alone. And yet there is something in their solitary endings that moves us deeply, because we made them, because we sent them, because they carried our eyes and our questions out to places we could never follow, and they did not come home. They are the furthest flung pieces of ourselves, scattered across the very worlds we cannot reach, each one ending its long and patient service in silence, in a place no human hand will ever touch again. And a few of them have gone further still. A handful of our spacecraft, launched decades ago to tour the outer planets, did not stop when their tour was done. They kept going, out past the last of the planets, out past the edge of the region where the sun's influence holds sway, out into true interstellar space, the vast dark between the stars. They are still traveling now, silent and cold, their power slowly fading, their instruments one by one going dark. They are the furthest things human hands have ever made, so distant that their faint radio whispers take many hours, then a full day, to crawl back to us across the void. They will never reach another star. Even aimed at the nearest one, they would take tens of thousands of years to arrive, but they are out there, still moving, our first small footsteps into the immensity, drifting outward forever. On one of them, there is a message. When it was built, its makers understood that it would outlast not only them, but very likely all of human history, that it might drift through the galaxy for billions of years, long after the Earth itself is gone. And so they placed aboard it a kind of letter, a golden record, carrying sounds and images of the Earth, the sound of rain and wind and surf, the songs of birds and whales, music from across the world, and greetings spoken in many languages, pictures of people and places, and the ordinary miracles of a living planet. It was sealed for the ages, a gift flung into the dark, in case in some unimaginable future, across some unimaginable distance, another mind might find it and know that we were here, that once, on a small blue world around an ordinary star, there were beings who looked up at the night and wondered, and who reached out, as best they could, toward the worlds they could never touch. That little craft will almost certainly never be found. The odds against it are beyond enormous. The galaxy is so vast, and it is so small, and the space between the stars is so empty, that it may drift for the entire remaining lifetime of the universe and never come within light years of anyone. But that is not really the point. The point was the reaching. The point was that a species bound to a single world, held back by every law of physics from the places it longed to go, still found a way to send something of itself outward, still refused to be entirely confined, still insisted on casting a message into the dark against all hope of reply. There is something in that which is very close to the heart of what we are. We cannot reach the distant worlds, but we can reach toward them, and sometimes the reaching is a kind of arrival all its own. There are those who dream of going further still, of building a machine that could actually reach another star, not in 70,000 years, but within a single human lifetime, so that a person alive at the launch might still be alive to see the first images arrive. The dream is a strange and clever one. Since we cannot make a great ship go fast enough, the idea is to make the probe almost impossibly small and light instead, a tiny thing, no heavier than a feather, carrying only the barest sliver of a camera and a transmitter attached to a gossamer sail thinner than a soap bubble. And then, rather than carrying its own engine, it would be pushed from behind by an immense beam of light, a great array of lasers here at home, pouring their energy onto the sail, driving the little craft faster and faster until it was moving at a real fraction of the speed of light, fast enough to cross to the nearest star in perhaps 20 or 30 years. It is a beautiful idea, and it may even one day be possible. But consider the difficulties. The probe would be so small, it could carry almost nothing. It could not slow down when it arrived, and so it would flash past its target world in a matter of hours, gathering what few glimpses it could before racing on into the dark forever. Its faint whisper of data, sent back across 4 light years, would take 4 more years merely to reach us, and would be so weak by then that catching it at all would be a triumph. And to push the sail, we would need to build a beam of light more powerful than anything humanity has ever made, aimed with a precision beyond anything we have ever achieved, sustained without flaw. Even this, our boldest and most ingenious plan for touching another star, is a thing of gossamer and starlight, a single fragile glimpse bought at enormous cost, a fleeting wave to a world we could never stop at, never study closely, never return to. It is the very most we can imagine, and it is still almost nothing against the vastness. That is how hard the distance is. Even our wildest hopes must shrink themselves to a feather and a bubble of foil, and even then can only wave in passing at the nearest door. Our machines, then, are how we touch the untouchable. They are the compromise the universe has left us. We cannot go, but they can go a little way. We cannot survive the hostile worlds, but they can endure them for a while, long enough to look, long enough to learn, long enough to send home a few precious glimpses before they fall silent. Everything we know of the far planets, we know through them, through the patient labor of these small brave machines, carrying our senses out to where our bodies will never follow. And each image they send back, each faint stream of data crawling home across the dark, is a message from a place we can never stand, a postcard from the unreachable. Proof that even from within our small circle of the possible, we can extend our knowing far beyond the edge of where we can ever go. But even our machines have their limits, and even our knowing has its edge. For there is a difference between studying a world from afar and truly knowing it, and that difference is one more barrier between us and the distant planets, subtler than distance, subtler than heat, but just as real. We can measure a faraway world. We can weigh it, in a sense, by the pull it exerts on its star. We can measure its size by the shadow it casts. We can even, with our finest instruments, catch the light filtering through its atmosphere and read some of the gases within it. And from all this, we can build a picture, a careful, reasoned, scientific picture of what that world might be like. But it will always be a picture built from hints. It will always be, in part, a guess. We will never feel the wind of that world on our skin. We will never taste its rain, or hear the sound of its seas, or stand upon its ground and turn slowly to take in its horizon. There is a kind of knowing that only comes from being there, and that kind of knowing, for the distant worlds, will be denied to us forever. And even the knowing we can gather from afar is uncertain, shot through with doubt. When we read the gases in a distant world's atmosphere, we are not truly seeing the world. We are catching a thin thread of starlight that has passed through its air, and teasing apart, from the faint pattern hidden within that light, the fingerprints of the gases it brushed against on its way. It is a delicate and difficult art, at the very edge of what our finest instruments can do, and the answers it gives us are rarely certain. We might detect a gas that, here on Earth, is made almost entirely by living things, and feel a surge of hope that we have found a sign of life on another world. But the very same gas might also be made by processes that have nothing to do with life at all. By volcanoes, by lightning, by the slow reactions of rock and heat and light. And across 4 light years, or 40, or 400, we would have no way to walk down to that world and settle the question. We could not lift a single stone and look beneath it. We could not dip a hand into its seas. We would be left with a hint, a maybe, a tantalizing ambiguity we could never quite resolve, forever wondering, never knowing for sure. That is the nature of all knowledge gathered across such distances. It is real, and it is precious, and it is always, always incomplete. We reach out across the void with our instruments, and we grasp a little, and the greater part of every world slips through our fingers and is gone. Think of how much of a place is invisible from far away. Imagine trying to understand the Earth itself from 100 light years off, with nothing but the faint blended light of the whole planet smeared into a single point. You might detect that there is water. You might detect the gases that hint at life, but you would never know the particular green of a single leaf, or the sound of a child laughing, or the way light falls across a quiet room in the late afternoon. You would never know any of the small, specific, irreplaceable things that actually make up the experience of a world. All of that, the real texture of a place, the felt reality of it, is lost across the distance. It cannot be measured. It cannot be inferred. It can only be lived by someone who is there, and no one will ever be there on those distant worlds to live them for us. Their particular beauties, whatever they are, will unfold unwitnessed, moment after moment, age after age, with no eye to see and no mind to hold them. This is perhaps the deepest form of unreachability. Not just that we cannot go, but that even in principle, even with the finest instruments we could ever dream of building, there is a limit to how truly we can know a place we have never touched. The distant worlds will always keep the greater part of themselves hidden from us. We will know their masses and their orbits and the broad chemistry of their skies. We will not know their mornings, we will not know what it is like to be there. And there is a strange humility in accepting this, a recognition that the universe is not an object to be fully cataloged and understood, but a vastness that will always exceed our grasp, always hold more than we can ever gather in. Most of what exists will never be known by us. Most of what exists will never be known by anyone. And it will exist anyway, in all its unwitnessed splendor, entirely indifferent to whether it is ever seen. And yet we go on looking and go on wondering, and there is one question above all others that keeps us reaching toward the distant worlds, one longing older and deeper than the desire to explore. It is the question of whether we are alone, somewhere, out among all those countless planets, on some warm and watery world in the habitable zone of some quiet star. Might there be life? Might there be, even now, in this very moment, another world where something looks up at its own night sky and wonders the very same thing? This is the possibility that haunts and thrills us more than any other, and it is bound up, painfully, with all the unreachability we have spoken of tonight. Because if there is life out there, and the sheer number of worlds makes it hard to believe there is not, then it is almost certainly too far away for us ever to reach, or even to speak with. Consider what conversation across the stars would mean. Suppose there were intelligent beings on a world 100 light years away, and suppose we could somehow detect a signal from them, or send one to them. A single message, traveling at the speed of light, would take 100 years to arrive. A reply would take another 100 to come back. A simple exchange, a hello and an answer, would span 200 years, longer than most nations have existed. The person who sent the greeting would be long dead before any answer could return. There could be no real conversation, no back and forth, no meeting of minds. Only messages passing in the dark, each one a century out of date by the time it arrived. Letters between the living and the not yet born, across a gulf that no relationship could ever span. And that is for a world a mere 100 light years away, a close neighbor by cosmic standards. If life is rarer, if the nearest other minds are thousands of light years off, or in another galaxy entirely, then even this ghost of a conversation becomes impossible. We might learn that we are not alone. We might one day catch some faint sign in the light of a distant world, some whisper in its atmosphere that speaks of life, some pattern that could only be made by living things, and that would be one of the most profound discoveries in all of human history, a moment that would change forever how we understand our place in the universe. But we would not be able to go to them. We would not be able to speak with them. We would only be able to know, across the unbridgeable dark, that they were there, or had been there, in the ancient light we were seeing. Two islands of life in a vast and empty sea, aware of each other at last, and forever unable to reach across. And there is a deeper puzzle woven through all of this, one that has troubled thoughtful people ever since we understood how many worlds there truly are. If the universe is so vast, and so old, and so crowded with planets, then where is everyone? If life arises readily wherever the conditions are right, the galaxy should be full of it, brimming with civilizations far older than our own, some of them ancient beyond measure, having had billions of years to spread outward, to build, to send their signals rippling across the stars. And yet, when we listen, we hear nothing. When we look, we see no sign. The sky is silent. The great galaxy turns, star after star, world after world, and gives us not one clear whisper of another mind. This is the strange, quiet mystery at the heart of it all. By every reasonable guess, the universe should be teeming with company. And so far as we can tell, it seems empty of it. No one knows why. Perhaps life itself is far rarer than the sheer number of worlds would suggest. requiring some fragile chain of accidents that almost never happens twice. Perhaps life is common, but minds are rare, so that the galaxy is full of quiet oceans and green shores, but almost never of anyone to wonder about them. Perhaps others are out there, but the distances are simply too great, the ages too long, so that we pass each other in the dark like ships that never sight one another. Each civilization flickering into being and fading away before it can ever meet another. Or perhaps, and this is the gentlest thought, we are simply young and early, among the first to look up and ask the question, so that the answering voices have not yet had time to arise, or their signals have not yet had time to cross the enormous gulfs between us. We do not know, we only know that so far, in all our looking, we have found the stars beautiful and the worlds beyond counting, and the silence, so far, complete. There is a loneliness in this that is hard to name. To be, perhaps, not alone in the universe, and yet as good as alone, because everything else is so impossibly far. To share existence with countless other living worlds, and never to touch a single one of them. It is the loneliness of the whole human species. Written across the whole of space, we call out, and the dark is so wide that our voice is lost in it. We listen, and if there are answers, they are traveling toward us so slowly, from so far, that they may not arrive for 10,000 years, if they arrive at all. And in the meantime, we sit here, on our one small world, the only voices we can truly hear being one another's, the only hands we can truly hold being the ones close by. But perhaps, and here the night begins to turn gently toward its close, perhaps that is not only sorrow. Perhaps there is something in the unreachability of it all that we can learn to hold not as a wound, but as a kind of quiet gift. For consider what it means. It means that this world, this one reachable world, is the whole of the home we have, and the whole of the home we need. It means that the people beside you, the ones within reach of your voice and your touch, are not a small consolation for the unreachable multitudes of the stars, but the very thing that makes existence warm and bearable and worth having at all. All that distance, all that cold, all those countless worlds we can never touch. They throw into sharp and tender relief the small circle of what we can touch. And that small circle, when you look at it truly, is everything. There is an image that captures this better than any words could. Long ago, one of our little spacecraft, far out toward the edge of the solar system, having finished its long tour of the giant planets, was turned around for one last look back the way it had come. And from that immense distance, further than any human had ever been, it took a photograph of the Earth. In that photograph, our whole world, everything and everyone we have ever known, is not a globe, not a blue marble, not anything you could recognize as a planet at all. It is a single dot, a tiny pale point of light, smaller than a speck of dust, caught almost by chance in a scattered beam of sunlight, all but lost in the vast black emptiness. That is us. That is the entire Earth, seen from just the near edge of our own small system. Every mountain and ocean, every city, every war and every love, every person who has ever lived and died, the whole of human history, all of it, held in that one faint mote of light, adrift in the dark. And that pale dot is the only home we will ever have. It is the one reachable world in all the unreachable vastness. There is nowhere else to go. There is no other refuge waiting for us out among the furnaces and the ice worlds and the sunless wanderers. The distant planets, for all their beauty, offer us nothing we could live upon. And so this small blue world, this single pale point of light, is not one option among many. It is everything. It is the whole of what we have. To see it from far away, tiny and fragile, and alone against the immensity, is to understand, in a way nothing else can teach, how precious and how rare and how worth cherishing it truly is. There is a reason we look up at the night sky and feel both smallness and wonder at once. The smallness is real. We are tiny, and the universe is vast beyond all reckoning, and most of it will forever lie beyond us. But the wonder is real too, and the wonder is not diminished by the distance. If anything, the distance is what creates the wonder. A universe we could easily cross would be a smaller thing, less mysterious, less able to fill us with awe. It is precisely because the far worlds are unreachable that they hold their strange power over us, that they draw our eyes upward on clear nights, that they have inspired every myth and dream and longing our species has ever known. The unreachable is not only a barrier, it is also the source of all our reaching. Take away the distance, and you take away the mystery, and take away the mystery, and you take away something essential to what it is to be a wondering creature under an open sky. For we have always been reaching. It is perhaps the oldest thing about us. Long before we understood what the stars were, before we knew that they were suns, before we knew that there were other worlds at all, our distant ancestors sat beneath the very same night sky you are under now, and felt the pull of it. They gave the stars names. They wove them into stories, into gods and heroes and animals traced in points of light across the dark. They watched them wheel slowly through the seasons and used them to find their way across trackless deserts and open roadless seas. They wondered, as you have wondered, what those lights truly were, and whether anything up there might be looking back. Every generation since has reached a little further and understood a little more, and found, always, that the wondering did not shrink, but only deepened. We are the reaching creatures, the ones who cannot look up at a light in the darkness without longing to know it, without aching, however faintly, to go. That longing has carried us a very long way indeed. It has not carried us to the stars, and perhaps it never will. But it was never truly about arriving. The reaching itself is the thing. The wondering itself is the gift. It is what we are, as much as anything is what we are, and it costs the far worlds nothing to be longed for, and asks nothing of you tonight but that you feel, for a moment, that old and gentle pull. The planets we may never reach are, in a sense, a gift precisely because we cannot reach them. They are the permanent frontier, the horizon that never comes closer no matter how far we travel, the promise that there will always be more, always something further out, always another light in the dark to wonder about. Our ancestors looked up at those same lights, knowing far less than we do about what they were, and felt the same pull, the same ache, the same lifting of the heart. And our descendants, however far in the future, however much they come to know, will look up at those same lights and feel it too. The stars are the one inheritance that does not diminish with the sharing, the one treasure that grows no smaller no matter how many eyes have gazed upon it. They belong to everyone who has ever looked, and to everyone who ever will. So let the distance be what it is. Let the far worlds turn slowly in their unreachable dark, the furnaces and the ice worlds, the ocean worlds and the sunless wanderers, the 7 small planets around their dim red star, the countless worlds beyond the horizon carried away forever by the expansion of everything. Let them be. We do not need to reach them to love them. We do not need to stand upon them to be moved by them. It is enough, perhaps, simply to know that they are there, or were there, in the old light still crossing the void toward us. It is enough to look up, and to wonder, and to feel ourselves held for a moment within something so much larger than ourselves, that its edges cannot be found. And here, in the quiet, on this one small reachable world, there is a kind of peace to be found in all of it. You are not required to cross the universe. You are not required to reach the stars. That reaching was never the point, and it was never truly possible, and knowing that, you can let the longing soften into something gentler, into gratitude, into rest. The vastness does not ask anything of you tonight. It only turns, slow and patient and beautiful, in the dark above the roof, while you lie here safe and warm on the one world where you were always meant to be. The distant planets do not need you to reach them. They only need you, perhaps, to have looked once or twice on some clear night, and to have felt, however briefly, the great and lovely strangeness of it all. The light of far-off worlds is still traveling toward you, even now, even as you drift toward sleep. It set out long ago, from places you will never go, and it is crossing the dark patiently, unhurried, to arrive at last, some night, at an eye that happens to be turned upward. It asks nothing. It carries no message you must answer. It is simply there, and it is simply beautiful, the faint arriving glow of everything we cannot reach, falling softly on a small world that is, for all its smallness, the only home the universe has given us, and more than enough. So rest now. Let the far worlds turn. Let the light keep traveling across the dark, in no hurry at all, on its way to eyes not yet opened, on shores not yet formed, in ages far beyond our own. There is nothing more to do tonight, and nowhere you need to go. The whole vast, unreachable, impossible universe will keep on turning perfectly well without you for these few hours, and it will still be there, patient and glittering, whenever you wish to look again. Until then, let it carry you gently out past the last of the light, and down at last into the deep and quiet dark of sleep, where the only distances that remain are the soft, unhurried spaces between one slow breath and the next. Sleep well. The stars will keep, and the planets we may never reach will go on shining, far away and lovely, all through the long and peaceful night.